Welcome to the Real and Real Estate Podcast, your go-to show for real estate success. Whether you're an agent aiming to crush it or a buyer or seller wanting the inside scoop, we're here to deliver expert advice, insider tips, and the real talk you need. Each episode, we chat with top industry pros to give you the facts, strategies, and inspiration you need to thrive in this business. Let's dive in and make big moves together. Hi, welcome back to the Real and Real Estate, where we talk to the experts and get all the facts. And today, I'm here with John Bramblett from Stewart Insurance, and we're going to talk about business insurance. So thank you, John. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Nice to see you, Jean.
Nice to see you too. Now, I know Stewart Insurance does a lot of different kinds of insurance, but your specialty is business insurance, correct?
That's correct. I work primarily with real estate brokers and independent title and attorney agents on their business insurance. But we do have another side of the house that does work with families and individuals on their personal insurance. So home, wind, auto, flood, motorcycle, those types of things. Yes.
Yes. And we all need that. But today I wanted to talk specifically to anyone out there that's thinking about getting a business going or already has a business going, and maybe it's time to shop around for insurance again. So I came to you the minute I started my business, and you got me set up on E&O, which is Errors and Omissions, Liability, and I kind of leave it all up to you. I believe I even have some cyber insurance.
That is correct. That is correct. Yes.
So why don't we start with E&O, Errors and Omissions? Who needs that? And I know it's more than just business owners.
Well, it's really the easiest way to look at, or the best way to look at errors and omissions is think of it as like malpractice insurance for a business. So a doctor has malpractice insurance in case they make a misdiagnosis or they make a mistake. Errors and omissions is that same thing. Many times you'll hear it called professional liability. And in a sense, it's somebody feels that you did them wrong. So for the case of a real estate broker, let's say, maybe they felt like that you didn't provide the type of service that you had promised, or maybe they felt like that you didn't treat me in the same professional manner that you treated some of your other clients, or maybe they felt like that you didn't maintain the fiduciary responsibilities that we agreed to. So they would file a claim against you for, in a sense, professional liability. You did not do your job. And where errors and omissions comes into play is can help offset some of that risk. So take some of that financial responsibility and move it on to an insurance company.
Okay, well, that's certainly what we all need. Am I wrong, though? I believe back when my children were young, I was involved in a lot of school activities, PTA, etc. There are other people other than just business owners that need errors and omissions or E&O insurance. Is that correct? Like boards of directors and school boards, that sort of thing?
For those individuals, we would write, it's a similar type of policy, but it's directors and officers.
Oh, okay.
So, but it is a similar type of policy. So there's a professional organization in town that's in the real estate realm that we've written their directors and officers. So it does similar kind of thing. It protects those that serve in case, there's any issues, either from a concern from a fiduciary responsibility, or if somebody feels like that the directors and officers did not, act in the best interest of the organization.
Okay. So I guess that's kind of more than one kind of E&O insurance. How do you determine what someone needs for their business or their organization?
I think the first thing would be very similar to what you do with new clients that you have or prospective clients. Let's sit down and learn about let's learn about your business, what you do, what you're trying to accomplish, what are your concerns. There's always somebody's got a concern about a reason why they're considering having some sort of coverage. So what is my concern? Let's figure that out. Let's take a look at your business itself. Have you been in business a long time? Are you just now starting out? Or do you provide, is it very niche driven? Or do you have a lot of different services that your organization provides? Are you risk averse and want to make sure that you have as much coverage as possible?
Yeah.
Or are you more uh, accepting of maybe being a bit more self-insured, and you really want to look at things from a catastrophic perspective? So we would start with those types of questions, and then based upon that and those needs are, then we would build different insurance plans around that need. If you're, for example, if again, if you were a realtor or a real estate broker and you did a lot of open houses, general liability is something that was nice to have because it helps with bodily injury if somebody were to get hurt,
Oh,
or
perfect.
property damage if somebody's property got damaged, or if you had a brick and mortar location that you didn't own where you're leasing. Many times the landlord requires the general liability coverage.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. What other kinds of, I mean, let's talk about cyber. That's certainly a big topic right now. You have that as
Abs-
an option for businesses, correct?
Absolutely. So cyber will come in and provide you some support if there were some defense costs. So if somebody said that the cyber attack was your fault, so now you'll need somebody to come in and do some sort of forensics to determine, if that was an issue that was caused. If there was maybe some damages to your system because of that, um, we would want to take a look at that. If you are a firm, let's say like a property management firm that handled finances, then we would want to make sure that there was part of that coverage covered the loss of funds. Or if you were a
Hmm.
independent title and attorney agent and there were situations where you were obviously handling a lot of funds, then we would want to make sure that we would get that coverage. There are times when you would want to look at first party coverage issues that you may have caused, or third party coverage, maybe issues that some other entity might have caused. So again, based upon how your business is structured, how many employees that you have, will we take a look at, are there already existing protocols in place, security protocols in place? If not, what needs to be there in order to write that coverage? But that's where the cyber would come into play.
That would be a great help, that analysis that you would help people do.
Well, and it is one of the offerings that we have, Gene, is that we will offer up to our prospective clients to do an insurance policy analysis, just that. So
Fantastic.
with that discussion that we talked about, we would take a look at their policies, and we've come back and said your coverage is solid, you're in good shape, or we say you looks like you've got a really good policy. There are a couple of issues here, or there may be some areas of weaknesses that we would want to point out. We recently worked with an attorney that her primary business is in and around and supporting real estate, and with her lawyer's liability coverage, which is basically E&O for an attorney.
Yeah.
And with her coverage, it was a good, solid plan, but it was a generic plan, and it wasn't written specifically for those that are involved in insurance. So there were some vagueness in the policy that, depending upon a specific claim, uh, the company might have backed away, um, or the insurance company might have backed away coverage because it wasn't specifically listed. And we were able to find her a policy that was written for attorneys that specifically work in the real estate area. So the definitions were much clearer, much cleaner, and it's much more obvious about what was and wasn't covered. So those are the types of things that we would look at for that analysis.
Well, that's fantastic. And that would be valuable for anyone in business to have someone with a fresh look come in and see what you have and where the holes in your coverage might be.
Well, we truly strive to be the insurance resource for real estate, and so one of the things that we try to do, and one of our tenets, is that we want to make sure that we help. We've got to show that we can give you some value and provide value, and then we've earned the right to ask for your business. But the first thing we've got to do is be able to show you value, and one of the ways that we try to do that is through that assessment, so that we can help folks, work through that. We have an organization now that they are a signing agency, and they work with a variety of independent notaries throughout the state. And we're working with them on a concern right now that about 20% of what these independent notaries do is actually notary driven. The remainder of that is just signing documents. So they're out at somebody's closing with, as
Right.
you know, all of these pages that have to be signed and signed properly.
Right.
And if something were to happen, if they didn't get the document signed properly and it caused a delay in the closing, or maybe the closing not to happen, there could be some liability that they would have. And the problem is a lot of the notary coverage, professional liability on notary, is just um, for the notary work, but it doesn't cover the 80% of the signing ability. So we were able to work with
Right.
them and find some opportunities for them where the coverage not only covers the signing responsibilities, but
Right.
also the notary responsibilities.
That's wonderful. I know you've been very helpful for me, and I rely on that a lot. So you always have an answer or you get me an answer. So thank you.
You're welcome. I've enjoyed having you as a client.
And now, time for a short break.
Dreaming of transforming your space? At Broderick Dean Construction, we bring your vision to life with our seamless design build approach. Locally owned and operated in Tomball and surrounding areas, Broderick Dean Construction is a family business built on craftsmanship and care. Specializing in aging in place design and multi-generational living, we create spaces that grow with you, timeless, functional, and beautiful. From remodels to custom home builds to commercial construction projects, our design build approach brings your vision to life with expert guidance every step of the way. Schedule your design build consultation today at broderickdean.com to get started.
What else do business owners need to know or think about from an insurance standpoint? Are there other like I didn't realize there was cyber insurance before I talked to you. Is there anything else out there we need to be aware of?
Well, I think if you have a lot of employees, then you would want to consider workers' compensation because the general liability coverage helps if somebody that's not a member of your team is hurt. But if somebody on your team, an employee, was hurt, that coverage wouldn't come into play. So you would want to consider workers' compensation would be a good base one. Also to keep in mind, as we move along, and then employee liability is another one to take a look at. Professional liability, and that would be coverage if an employee were to come back and said that maybe you had promised them a promotion and it didn't come through, or you had promised them a certain salary level and it didn't come through, or you promised them some coverage, you promised them or you let them go and it wasn't a justified reason. So that employment liability coverage can come into play, and that's handy. And then occasionally there will be different bonds that people will have to either just to be able to cover certain legal costs that might come up, or there could be bonds that are out there that could cover if maybe some of the members of the management team were to do some things that were less than ethical. So we would look at those again based upon what your particular state or states where you operate require, but also just what makes sense to you from a business perspective.
Now, so are you able to work with people in other states? Did I understand that comment correctly?
That's correct. So we have both personal and business clients all over the U.S.
Okay. Oh, all right. And yes, we will be talking about personal later in the year, but right now. Okay. What else do you want to tell us about business insurance? What are any new things coming up that we need to be aware of? I mean, cyber is really big. I know I keep talking about that, but I was so surprised to find out you could actually get cyber insurance.
Well, I think it is. There's just a couple things that are happening, in that world. We see, there's a term called social engineering, and it's where somebody pretends to be somebody else.
Right.
So I pretend to be, let's say, somebody that wants to do business with you, and through that process, if I get access to your system, Now I basically have control of your business. So one of the case studies that we use when we're talking about cyber coverage is a real estate driven case study, and it's uh, a realtor that just finished a closing, and he receives an email from the title company uh, referencing that closing, but the email is fake. But the bad actor, or is what the FBI calls these fraudsters, bad actors. The bad actor made the email look a lot like the email from the title
One.
company. So, and there was an attachment, and they didn't verify that the attachment was legit. They clicked on it. So now that went from I'm sending you a fake email or social engineering to pretend I look like somebody else. Now they actually had access to that person's files. So they were able to watch the transactions. They found a closing that was coming up, and you know how anxious people get around the closing.
Yes.
Right before closing, they sent a change in wiring instructions, and the
Oh,
client didn't verify those or didn't remember that, hey, the only time you're going to get changing wire instructions is not from me, the real estate professional, but from the title company. But that email came from that realtor because the fraudster had infiltrated his system.
oh, wow.
The funds are now, instead of wired to the appropriate bank, they're wired to the fraudster. So those are some of the things that we see happen. Or they'll get in and they'll hold your system ransom. And basically, if you're not willing to pay these fraudsters a ransom for them to let you have access to your system again, they'll open it up on the dark web, or they'll sell the information out on the dark web.
Wow.
And we still don't even know whether, even if we did pay the ransom, how much we're going to get the information back.
Right.
The other thing they're also doing is now, since they have all your contact information, they'd be reaching out to clients and saying, hey, Gene, I've got John's information. And if John doesn't pay me this ransom, I'm going to send all your personal information out on
Gosh,
the dark web. So not only am I getting pressure from the bad actor, I'm getting pressure from my client saying, you got to pay this, John. You got to protect me.
what a
So
mess.
that's having those kinds of programs in place, and the beauty of the cyber insurance now is the insurance companies are working with us to be their partner. So there are some very specific expectations that they have, um, and protocols that we need to put into place to make sure that we minimize the chance that something bad happens. So it's not just coverage to
Right.
offset the cost, but it's
Prevention.
truly risk management programs.
Yeah. Risk management is very important right now. John, I know we can't talk specifics because every situation is different, but as far as costs, is it based on volume that a business does, the number of employees, all of the above? Kind of what factors into costs for these
So they're
insurance?
gonna they're gonna look. So let's use a real estate broker as an example.
Sure.
So they're gonna look at gross commissional revenues, both. Many times they'll look at current, previous year, and what's projected. So are we growing or are we declining? They're going to look
Right.
at the number of people associated with the business, whether they be employees or 1099. They're going to look at the overall number of people associated with the business. They're going to look at um, the types of services that somebody provides. So you could have one broker that simply helps people buy and sell residential real estate and lease and rent residential real estate.
Right.
Then you could have another broker that does the same thing, but they also have a significant amount of commercial business, and maybe they do some property management as well.
Mhm.
Because that second brokerage has more services, that's a greater risk in the eyes of the insurance company. So that's going to affect the premium. Um, how many offices do you have? Are you located at one location in Houston, or do you have offices in Houston and Austin and Dallas?
Hmm.
So those are some of the key elements that we would look at. Um, to begin that process, and then they're going to look at how often do you, specifically for cyber, how often do you update your software packages? Do you have multifaceted authentication? Do you have protocols in place in case something were to happen? Do you limit people's access to certain files? Are most of the emails independent emails, or are they emails that are linked to the company's a server. So, and email systems. So those are the kinds of things that they're going to look at and we're going to need to answer and in some cases implement in order to write coverage.
John, is there anything in specific you want to mention to someone that, let's say they already have a business, but when their year comes up for their insurance, is it a good idea for them to, I hate to use the word shop around, but see if there's a more inclusive deal or a better deal around? Should they call you or someone to, all right, let's just say it, shop around?
No, I think so. And it's not any different than your business insurance ought to be part of your overall, annual financial analysis. You're going to take a look at your cash flow statement. You're going to look at your balance sheet. How are we doing? What's our cost per employee? What's my cost per sale? Is my revenue growing? Is my revenue decreasing? And part of that ought to be looking at your coverage because depending, maybe the business has decreased. So you might not need as much coverage, or you might be able to get a reduced premium, or hey, we've grown considerably. So let's take a look at it because right now we don't have enough coverage, or we've added another service. So yes, I think it's always good to have that conversation, and it can be a very brief one. John, this year we really haven't changed a whole lot. We haven't increased more than 25% in revenue. We haven't increased our employees that much. So it could be a simple renewal process, or it could be, look, we need to do an analysis. I have a client coming up this year that had a claim several years ago, and the claim's about to fall off their coverage history. So now would be a good time for us to take a look at some other options to see if we can provide equal or better coverage and maybe save on a little money on the premium.
Oh, that's always a good thing, saving money. All right,
But it does go back to what, sorry to interrupt, but it does go back to what you were saying is that there's that value aspect of it because you may get a real inexpensive premium, but what does your deductible look like and what do you and don't you have coverage? And that's always the thing that we got to make sure that folks understand is that you understand what is and is not covered. And as long as you understand that and are comfortable with that, in our world, we consider you properly insured.
If you ever have a question on that, you call John and he answers it for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for anyone out there listening that you're thinking about moving out on your own, starting your own brokerage, and you're thinking, it's just me. I don't need insurance. I disagree. Give John a call, find out what you do and don't need, because all the same risks apply to whether it's just you or you have many employees or just one other employee. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. The risks are still the same. And in many cases, it's easier from a cyber perspective, it's easier to infiltrate a smaller company than a larger that might have more protocols in place. And many times, if from an errors and omissions perspective, if a suit is filed, it's all driven by how people feel. So if they're upset, it doesn't matter whether you're a one-person shop or 150, 250 person shop.
Yeah.
If somebody feels like that they've been done wrong, they're going to file a claim, and it's nice to be able to have that backup with the errors and omissions coverage.
Right. Well, John, we're about out of time. Tell people how to reach you. If they have questions, they want an analysis.
They can reach me a couple of different ways. They can reach us at our toll-free number, 866-798-2827. They can reach me directly, 713-625-8160. They can email me at john.bramblett, BRAMBLETT at Stewart.com, and they can learn more about us at StewartInsurance.com.
So if you're thinking about starting a business, or if you've just started one, or you've been in business for a while, give John a call. He's happy to talk to you, tell you if he can help you or not, or if you have the right coverage or not. And he's just very, very helpful. So thank you, John, for coming on today. Any last words before we sign off?
Always a pleasure to see you, and thank you so much for having me. I'm quite honored.
Right. Well, my pleasure. Thank you so much, John. All right, everybody, give John a call. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in to the Real and Real Estate Podcast. I hope today's insights have inspired and empowered you. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the podcast with anyone who might benefit. Have questions or a topic you'd like us to explore? We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay informed, stay inspired, and keep moving towards success.